He said that after the wallpaper was changed, it would be the heavy bedstead, and then the barred windows, and then that gate at the head of the stairs, and so on. A bedstead is a wooden or metal frame of an old bed, and there was a gate at the head of the stairs. Probably that was to stop young children from falling down the stairs. "You know, the place is doing you good," he said, "and really, dear, I don't care to renovate the house just for a 3 months' rental." Renovate means to renew, to do up, to repair, and so now we know they're just staying for 3 months in this house. Well, that's the plan. "Then do let us go downstairs," I said. "There are such pretty rooms there." Then he took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose, and said he would go down cellar if I wished, and have it whitewashed into the bargain. Blessed little goose just means, that's just kind of a funny name to call someone. Whitewashed means painting it white. Into the bargain means he would do that as well. So he would move into the cellar, which is an underground floor, and he'd also whitewash it as well. But he is right enough about the beds and windows and things. Right enough just means he is right. He is certainly right about the beds and the windows and things. It is as airy and comfortable a room as anyone need wish. And, of course, I would not be so silly as to make him uncomfortable just for a whim. Whim means just when you want something that you want to do, a wish that is not necessary. I'm really getting quite fond of the big room, all but that horrid paper. Out of one window I can see the garden, those mysterious deep-shaded arbours, the riotous old-fashioned flowers and bushes and gnarly trees. Remember, arbours was a sort of shady area. Riotous here means uncontrolled, not tidy, I suppose. Grown wild. And gnarly means with bumps and lumps, not smooth. Out of another I get a lovely view of the bay and a little private wharf belonging to the estate. A wharf is a flat area next to the sea or the river where boats can stop. There is a beautiful shaded lane that runs down there from the house. I always fancy I see people walking in these numerous paths and arbours, but John has cautioned me not to give way to fancy in the least. So she always believes that she can see people walking in the many paths and arbours, which is a leafy, shady recess in some plants or trees. But John has cautioned me, John has warned me not to give way to fancy, not to listen to my imagination in the least at all. He says that with my imaginative power and habit of story making, a nervous weakness like mine is sure to lead to all manner of excited fancies, and that I ought to use my will and good sense to check the tendency. So I try. John says that with my imaginative power, my imagination, my ability to imagine, and my habit, my tendency to make stories, a nervous weakness, a nervous type of character that she has, is sure to lead to all kinds of excited ideas, and she ought to use her will and good sense to check, to stop the tendency. I think sometimes that if I were only well enough to write a little, it would relieve the press of ideas and rest me. So she sometimes thinks that if only she were well enough to write, it would take away the burden of her various ideas that float around in her head, and she could rest. But I find I get pretty tired when I try. This means when she tries to write, when I try. It is so discouraging not to have any advice and companionship about my work. When I get really well, John says we will ask Cousin Henry and Julia down for a long visit, but he says he would as soon put fireworks in my pillowcase as to let me have those stimulating people about now. So she finds it discouraging. Discouraging means takes away her hope and her confidence, dissuades her, persuades her not to do something. So she finds it discouraging for no one to give her any advice or companionship about her work. When she gets well, John says they'll ask Cousin Henry and Julia for a visit. But at the moment he would rather put fireworks in her pillowcase than have those stimulating people about now, because mentally she's not ready for people to excite her. I wish I could get well faster, but I must not think about that. This paper looks to me as if it knew what a vicious influence it had. So this suggests she doesn't have a very good mental state, because she thinks the paper, the wallpaper, knows that it's having a bad effect on her, when obviously it doesn't. There is a recurrent spot where the pattern lolls like a broken neck, and two bulbous eyes stare at you upside down. A recurrent spot, a repeated spot in the pattern, where it lolls, where it droops, it falls down. So if your neck's broken, it doesn't stand up straight, so your head would flop onto the side. And two bulbous eyes, two bulging, protruding, sticking out eyes stare at you upside down. I get positively angry with the impertinence of it and the everlastingness. Positively means definitely, decidedly. Actually, I actually get angry with the impertinence of it, with the absurdity of it, with the bad-mannered nature of this wallpaper, and the everlastingness, because the pattern repeats and the eyes are always staring. It kind of means like that. Up and down and sideways they crawl. They means the eyes. And those absurd, unblinking eyes are everywhere. There is one place where two breadths didn't match, and the eyes go all up and down the line, one a little higher than the other. So when they were putting the wallpaper up, the breadths, the widths of the wallpaper, sheets of paper, didn't match up. And this had an effect on the pattern, so that these eyes that she sees go all up and down the line of the wallpaper. I never saw so much expression in an inanimate thing before, and we all know how much expression they have. Inanimate means not living. I used to lie awake as a child and get more entertainment and terror out of blank walls and plain furniture than most children could find in a toy store. So this suggests she's always had some sort of mental instability, because when she was a child, she got scared about blank walls and just pieces of furniture, and also found it interesting.